Hello, and welcome to the 2020 Tucson Humanities Festival. My name is Alain-Philippe Durand, and I'm the Dean of the College of Humanities. Thank you for joining us. My esteemed colleagues have prepared these presentations to challenge and inform us, and perhaps help us seek better solutions to the problems we face in the world today. Now, please enjoy this presentation and visit our website, humanitiesfestival.arizona.edu, for the complete event schedule, as well as recordings of this event and future events. The 2020 Tucson Humanities Festival is supported by the Humanities Seminars program. The program offers premier adult education by top university professors from its home here in the College of Humanities.
Hello, I'm Colleen Lucy, and this presentation discusses the resurgence of political theater in contemporary Russia. It's widely held that the media landscape in today's Russia is dominated by state-run television channels that present a relatively uniform picture of the country and its political establishment. Russia, which ranks 149th out of the 180 on the Press Freedom Index, has severely limited the freedom of print media. One of the last venues to remain adamantly political even in the face of extreme pressures is the independent theater. For the past 20 years, there has been a vibrant renewal of Russian playwriting and the theater profession. The center point of this movement has and continues to be Teatr Dok, a small black box theater founded in 2002 in downtown Moscow. This independently run theater became a primary force in reshaping the Russian art scene. Known for producing works critical of Putin's administration and his policies, Teatr Dok has faced an onslaught of attacks over the years. Teatr Dok stages controversial plays, including shows on the rights of marginalized communities and exposés on political corruption. In response, the authorities have tried to silence Teatr Dok. The theater has lost its lease 3 times in the past 6 years for trumped-up reasons. Bomb threats have been called in, and nationalist groups have targeted the theater. It might seem strange that a small avant-garde theater that houses 60 audience members could garner so much attention from the authorities. But because the theater uses verbatim drama, the practice of using interviews with real people as the basis for a play, the performances ring true in ways that most media and art fail to do. To help contextualize the heavy-handed response to Teatr Dok's productions, it's important to note that theater has always been politicized in Russia. Playwrights and directors have, from the imperial period to today, struggled with political suppression, censorship, imprisonment, and were even sentenced to death in the Soviet period. The fraught relationship between theater and the political establishment can be traced all the way back to the medieval period. The folk jesters known as skamarokhi were musicians and tumblers known for bawdy lyrics that the Orthodox Church deemed diabolical. Skamarokhi were thus censored by the Tsar in the 1650s and all but banned in Russia. Even after Russia adopted Western forms of theater, the stage remained a place to challenge the status quo. One of the most beloved Russian comedies, The Government Inspector, Revizor, by Nikolai Gogol, satirized the corruption rampant throughout Russia. Only thanks to Tsar Nicholas I's intervention was the play staged in 1836. That Nicholas I, one of the country's most oppressive czars, would ordain a play critical of his regime illustrates how rulers have tried to control theater's political message. Whether it be Nicholas I or President Putin, Russia's leaders hope to control the impact of theater by condoning a few critical works as proof that they are not tyrants. Similar patterns of divine intervention are replicated in contemporary Russia. The best-known case is the trial of the feminist punk rock group Pussy Riot. 2 of the group's members were sentenced to prison for violating public decorum and served nearly 2 years behind bars. On the eve of the Sochi Olympics, however, Putin pardoned the women as a gesture of goodwill. Formed in 2011, Pussy Riot gained international attention for their fight to combine art and activism. Advocating for opposition to Putin and an end to authoritarianism, The group asserts the right to protest and perform in public spaces, including Moscow's Cathedral of Christ the Savior, Red Square, and even the World Cup. The early release of Pussy Riot members Nadezhda Tolokonnikova and Masha Alyokhina serve a dual purpose. On the one hand, they illustrate that Russia is not, as it is widely seen in the West, a repressive regime. On the other hand, such pardons confirm the centralization of power under the president, as he alone can free or imprison dissidents. Pussy Riot's case is not the only example of the country's harsh response to transgressive theater. When the leading Russian theater and film director Kirill Serebrennikov was charged with fraud in 2017, the international community, including Human Rights Watch, condemned the trial and conviction as politically motivated, given Serebrennikov's countercultural works. Serebrennikov was accused of embezzling millions of rubles through his theater. The prosecutors brought forth various evidence, including an accusation that his production of Midsummer Night's Dream had never been staged, when in fact it was performed in Russia to wide acclaim. Nevertheless, Serebrennikov was convicted, fined, and sentenced to house arrest. Operating on a much smaller budget than Serebrennikov's Gogol Center, Teatr Dog productions rely on the actor to convey the totality of the drama. Actors are trained in verbatim theater, a style developed by the royal court in the 1980s that assumes that the actor, playwright, and director go into a social environment and interview several people about an event. One of the more controversial productions Teatr Dog staged was the political satire Burlus Putin. Produced in 2012, Burlus Putin is an adaptation of the Italian playwright Dario Fo's play The Double-Head Anomaly. In Teatr Dog's version, Berlusconi's brain is placed into Putin's head with hilarious and frightening results. Teatr Dog's play 1 hour 18 minutes likewise garnered international acclaim. The play deals with the detention of Sergei Magnitsky, a whistleblowing tax advisor who uncovered fraud and collusion between the Russian mafia and police. The title refers to the amount of time doctors were refused access to treat Magnitsky before he died in police custody. The production September Dog used verbatim theater to reflect on the real-life responses to the Beslan school siege of 2004. Actors read comments of different community members to the tragic death of more than 180 school children and numerous other teachers and civilians when Russian armed forces stormed a school under hostage by Chechen separatists. Most recently, Teatr Dog came under fire for its performance Out of the Closet, which uses interviews with gay men about coming out. Because Russia has a ban on so-called gay propaganda, only those over 18 can attend. While the director checked the IDs of audience members, a plant sent by a far-right group accused the theater of exposing underage children to gay propaganda. Despite the intimidation, Teatr Dog produces theater that advocates for social justice, highlighting the voices of marginalized individuals, members of the LGBTQ community, migrant workers, formerly incarcerated individuals, is certain to garner pushback from authorities. Nevertheless, Teatr Dog and like-minded performers continue making thought-provoking works.
San Javier de Bac, El Tiradito, and roadside shrines are all part of the historical and cultural landmarks that dot Tucson's landscape. 67 miles from the Mexican town of Nogales, we are reminded of our proximity to what Gloria Anzaldúa called the open wound of the U.S.-Mexico border. Roman Catholicism, with its deep roots in southwestern history, along with other Catholic-inflected popular cultural practices, makes itself visible not only in religious spaces, but also in secular and political ones. My research on public expressions of religious practices in Latino communities in the United States demonstrates how Mexican and Mexican-American religious actors employ religious symbolism and language to assert claims to identity and belonging to American society and to contest racial violence and injustice. In this presentation, I will focus on pilgrimage as one type of religious expression that embodies and reflects the notion of justice. Indeed, through procession and pilgrimage, Mexican and Mexican-American Catholic communities express their commitment to justice and recognition in the American secular landscape. A focus on pilgrimage of both humans and devotional objects and images provides scholars with new avenues to approach historical and contemporary issues of migration, labor, and politics. In the mid-20th century, social justice activist Cesar Chavez famously modeled his 1966 activist pilgrimage through the fields of Delano to Sacramento in California on popular Catholic practices. Chavez used the symbol of the Virgen of Guadalupe, the famous 16th century image of the Mexican Marian apparition, to decorate the standard at the front of his caravan. This image, tied to both Mexican identity and Catholic practice, displayed the Virgin Mary as a symbol for social justice for farm worker rights and dignity. This image became a symbol of resistance during the grape boycotts and became a standard part of the United Farm Worker marches. Similarly, we see the display and veneration of other Catholic saint images throughout the U.S.-Mexico borderlands and among Mexican Catholic communities. San Judas Tadeo, or Saint Jude Tadeus, the patron saint of lost causes, is ubiquitous in the region as a patron saint of migrants. Saint Rita, often found alongside Saint Jude, is its patron saint of both impossible causes and of domestic violence victims. Petitions to her image, especially juxtaposed next to those of Saint Jude, demonstrate the needs of the local Catholic community in proximity to the border and in communities that face other types of precarity exacerbated by socioeconomic inequalities. Yearly, along the U.S.-Mexico border, the group Posadas Sin Fronteras recreates the biblical story of Joseph and Mary's search for shelter before the birth of Jesus. In the context of the United States immigration policy, the search is translated as a contemporary refugee tale. Devotion to Santo Toribio Romo has increased in popularity in the last 5 decades among migrants seeking safe passage to the United States. In this celebration of the Christmas tale, we see an image and reliquary of Santo Toribio Romo displayed and processed along the Calexico-Mexicali border as part of this reenactment. Processed along the border wall in the Calexico sun, devotees and the relics attracted the attention of Border Patrol agents, who observed the procession from their bicycles and SUVs but remained physically distant. The presence of Romo as a migrant symbol at an outdoor sermon called attention for the undoing of restrictive immigration policy and united pilgrims from both sides of the international fence. It became an invitation to create a communion of Catholic devotees and activists through singing, praying, walking, and the physical touch of fingers as they passed small notes between the metal grates of the rusted border wall. Like the display and procession of other Catholic images in earlier periods of political action, saints like Santo Toribio move in and through religious communities to assert religious and cultural identities in secular and public spaces. In this demonstration of religion and culture, we see a form of civic engagement that exists separate from the language of citizenship in the struggle for justice and civil liberties. While political actions like voting are limited to those with U.S. citizenship, pilgrimage, procession, and other varieties of public religiosity extend political engagement beyond the voting booth. Outside of courthouses and other repositories and institutions of governmental power, these displays focus attention to the agency of people and communities in the streets. The procession of Romo and other Catholic saints along the border also contests sanctions and legislation that limit the legal presence and human rights of migrants and refugees. The affective bonds between devotees and saint images, forged through the devotional labor of pilgrimage and procession, create bridges that disrupt the geopolitical boundaries of the international border. Secular space and place, and how immigrant communities engage in the streets affirm their histories and a vision of alternate frameworks of justice in the face of restrictive immigration policies.
Hello everyone, my name is Jiang Wu. I'm the director of the Center for Buddhist Studies. I'm glad to join this year's Humanity Festival PechaKucha event. I'm going to present a topic about how Buddhist studies engage social justice. A lot of you have heard about Buddhism, but what is Buddhism? To answer this question, we have to go back to 6th century BC India. There we have a great person called Shakyamuni who claimed that he reached the enlightenment and started this great tradition. Then what is Buddha Shakyamuni's teaching? Here, very simply, we have 4 noble truths, which means life is suffering, and the suffering was caused by craving. There's a way we can stop craving, which is to follow the right path. There are 8 ways of self-cultivation, but one of the most important cultivation is to practice meditation. The reason is that Buddhists believe the mind is essential to the world and to ourselves. We have to cultivate our mind first. I would like to call the first principle of Buddhism is the primacy of the mind. If we understand the power of the mind, then we're going to understand the Buddhist teaching of equality, because everyone has a mind. In your mind, you can transform reality and become a better person. Now we know what is Buddhism. The question now is, what is Buddhist studies? Buddhist studies started from studying Buddhist texts in different languages such as Sanskrit, Chinese, Tibetan. Now it includes all different disciplines such as social sciences and also social justice. More important is that I believe Buddhist studies deal with spiritual knowledge. It's our job to understand better what the spiritual knowledge Buddhism can provide. Recently, Buddhist study scholars realized that Buddhist teaching has more close relationship to healing and health. That means Buddhist spiritual knowledge can contribute to human beings' well-being and happiness. Justice is a part of the human beings' well-being and happiness. And the Buddhist already developed a sophisticated view about justice, especially in some of the Mahayana scriptures. Here, Mahayana means the greater vehicle. Now I'm going to give you several examples in the next few slides to show you how Buddhist scholars contribute to the discourse of social justice. For example, many years ago, I attended a class offered by Harvard scholar Thomas Quinn. In that class, he taught me what is engaged Buddhism. So this is a new form of the Buddhism in the contemporary world which consciously engage with our society and engage in the social issues such as social justice. For example, we learn Dr. Ambedkar's teaching. Dr. Ambedkar led mass conversion of his followers to Buddhism because he believed Buddhism is a teaching of social justice and equality. My next example is Bell Hooks. Some of you might remember her because 2 years ago we invited her to campus to give a talk. She embraces Buddhism and advocates equality and social justice in race, class, and gender. Nowadays, social justice and engaged Buddhism is an international phenomenon as well. In Taiwan, Master Xing Yun founded the Foguang Buddha Light organization to advocate humanistic Buddhism. Now you know we Buddhist scholars have engaged in social justice and engaged Buddhism. That's why we founded the Center for Buddhist Studies here on the University of Arizona campus. We took social justice as one of our missions. In our strategic plan published online, we have outlined various activities we want to advance social justice among underrepresented communities such as Native Indian, Hispanic, African American communities. Right now, we offer different kinds of courses about Buddhism on campus to college students. In the future, we plan to design community courses to spread Buddhist spiritual knowledge to all social class and all groups in the community. We also have an active lecture series about Buddhism. We invited all Buddhist leaders and Buddhist scholars to campus to give us talks related to Buddhism, Buddhist history, Buddhist art, and many topics. Now we have a very exciting project to move into the medical area because in collaboration with Dr. Andrew Wells Center for Integrated Medicine, we are launching a building project to include both centers in one building. That means in the future, we're going to have more programs in health, well-being, and happiness to incorporate the integrated medicine knowledge together with Buddhist spiritual knowledge. Our future is bright, and we invite your participation.